Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first actual episode of the MLM Royals podcast. I am your host, Loco Pobs, here to talk about, well, how the Kansas City Royals are doing so far in 2056. Guess what? It's not going too well, but that's okay. So, what are we going to talk about instead? We're going to talk about the draft. So, the new general manager of the Yankees, Brandon, actually put together both some individual recaps for teams, including the Royals, as well as a league draft review. So we're mainly going to talk about that before we dive into how the draft went for the Royals and how that kind of compares to the league overall, at least per the stuff that Brandon put together. Brief talk about how the Royals are doing. We are sitting currently at the end of May, Saturday, May 27th, 2056. The Royals are 14-35. That is a winning percentage of 28.6%. Not looking real good. Kind of expected. We traded Mike Meyerhoff for some prospects and a 2057 second round pick. Traded him to Atlanta. We are retaining all of his salary, but it is just for this season. He will be a free agent going into 2057. He's really, really close to 40. We'll see if he sees a significant drop off. Maybe we try to bring him back on less than $60 million a year. I don't know. He's a fan favorite, but I wanted to try to get at least a little value for him while I could. But that definitely took a hit to our ticket sales. We have seen just not a lot of performance in general. Offensively, we are 13th in the American League in runs scored, 15th in batting average, 15th in on base. But hey, 14th in OPS, probably boosted because we are tied for 10th in home runs. All the other offensive categories, we are no better than 14th, it looks like, with our weighted on base average of 283 being 14th. From a pitching perspective, runs against, we are 13th. Our starters ERA is at the bottom of the league. But hey, our bullpen is actually top half with an ERA that ranks 6th in the American League. Overall, our FIP is 7th, so that's encouraging, but might need a little help with the defense. We have a negative 6.6 overall zone rating, and we've committed 34 errors so far. That's less than 50 games played, and we have committed 34 errors. Not so good, but that's not the bottom of the league. It's only 13th. So that's encouraging. Overall, team's not looking great. Mike Jaquez is still here. He still leads the team in home runs with 12. Next closest has 6. Same with runs batted in. He has 33. Next is 25. Vince Script tops basically all of the pitching leaderboards besides saves because, well, he's a starting pitcher, so he's not going to be getting out there and getting saves as well as starting games. But that's okay. But what did I really want to talk about? I want to talk about the draft. Why? Because the Royals need help, and it's not going to be coming to the major league team anytime soon. So overall, we made, I believe, 18 picks. Not quite that many. I think 17 picks over 18 rounds in the draft. Again, this is me mainly looking at Brandon's report, so it might be slightly off. He had talked about how there was some confusion with the stuff that he was using based on picks in round and overall pick. So like the 54th pick would be the 24th pick in round 2. And if you're putting that into some statistical stuff, that gets a little confusing. But overall, this stuff that he used, it looks like it was Notebook LM, so Notebook Language Model. I think that's what Notebook LM stands for. Has ranked all of our prospects using a score that Brandon developed. Overall, our top ranked pick is actually supposedly our 5th round pick, Pedro Alvarez, a shortstop. Kind of interesting because we also drafted a shortstop in round 1, Randy Palmer. But Pedro is ranked our top overall pick based on the formula that Brandon was using. Palmer comes in at our 7th best pick, overshadowed by both our 11th and our 10th round picks. Our 11th round pick, Mike Kennoyer, is a second baseman. 10th round pick, Mitch Keel, is a first baseman. So we'll see how that pans out. It's always interesting, especially when a first baseman drafted in the middle rounds at best is ranked higher than your first round shortstop, both from a player position importance. First base probably less important than shortstop. And just, okay, I drafted this guy 9 rounds later, but he's rated a little bit higher. Mind you, this is probably what? Like a 2% difference in overall score. So whether or not it's really that important, I don't know. Compared to the difference between Alvarado and Palmer, 5th round and 1st round picks, that's about 9-10%, at least if I'm looking at the score just as a raw value of, okay, 1.32 being like 32% better than average compared to 1.24 being 24% better than average. So 8 or 9% better, we'll see. I think especially with this being the first year of the draft that we've seen this really be evaluated, I think something to keep an eye on for sure. Encouraging though to see that I made a 5th round pick that had a decent rating. I think I remember picking Alvarado after looking at some stuff ratings wise and kind of looking at the spreadsheets that I put together and being happy to see where he was in my rankings compared to him being available still in the draft pool in the 5th round. Looking at the draft on Stats Plus, I made this pick, I believe, at probably like 5 something a.m. So this was probably shortly after I had gotten up to do some sort of biking or something. But nice to see that happened and got taken care of. Cool to see that. Be really interested to see how Mike Knoyer, our 11th round pick, second baseman, and Mitch Keel, our 10th round pick, first baseman, both do. All of these players are currently in rookie minus. So our lowest level minor league team, I just kind of went through and tried to get them all added to a short list so I can kind of keep track of them a little bit better. If anyone knows how to stop a player having their name entirely like in uppercase letters after being added to a short list, that would be awesome. I really just want to use the short list to be able to keep track of these players, but the fact that their names suddenly become all uppercase after doing that really kind of tweaks me in some weird way. It's odd, but like looking through a list and you see these guys in all caps amongst other names that are appropriately capitalized, and it weirds me out at times. So if we know how to disable that, please let me know. Otherwise, players that I'm excited about, Steve Proctor as a round 2 pitcher, I think is something I'm kind of excited to see how he does. Overall, Brandon's summary for the Royals draft, at least, gave us an overall grade of A-, saying a data-driven draft that has maximized value and accelerated our rebuilding plan. That would be fantastic if that's also the case. Talking a little bit more about Steve Proctor, he is the top arm of the class that we drafted. Obviously not the best pitcher in the draft at all, considering he was drafted in round 2 and there are plenty of pitchers ahead of him drafted. But I'll be interested to see how these starting and relief pitcher grades pan out for folks, because the overall score that Proctor received was a 1.2773. So maybe that means he's 27 to 28% above average, but the starting pitcher and relief pitcher grades are both below 1. So I don't know if they were then combined in some way to arrive at a pitching score compared to what position players are getting, which is just a single position ranking. There's no combination of various positions. So like a shortstop is not a combination of shortstop and second base. It's shortstop. He just has one grade for that. But SP and RP being both lower and then combined to give me a higher grade for Proctor. We'll see what happens. Something else that the write-up pointed out is that we are building a high floor infield with Mitch Keel, again, that 10th round pick, first baseman having a score of 1.25. Alan Matthews, our third baseman that we drafted in the 6th round, and then Randy Palmer, our first round shortstop, obviously flagged as our top pick, most likely just as our first pick that we made in the draft. All of these players have scores above 1.23. So that's encouraging, I think. Maybe that means 23% above average. Maybe that just means slightly better in one way or another. I think we're all trying to figure out exactly how to weight this so far, but that's encouraging. I also did invest in some pitching depth, as pointed out by the write-up, with 3 pitchers standing out in the mid to late rounds: Ron Keaton, Shane Howard, and David Cole. Howard was actually a 7th round pick. Keaton an 8th, and David Cole a 14th. All above 1.03, with Keaton coming in actually at 1.0773. So something to keep an eye on for sure. Obviously, as noted earlier, the steal of the draft, at least for us, was Pedro Alvarado, coming at a 1.3156. That is the highest score that we have within our class. Drafted again in round 5. So see how that pans out. Overall, looking at the breakdown of our drafts, we picked 7 pitchers, 6 infielders, 3 outfielders and 1 catcher. Could I probably have picked another outfielder and maybe another catcher? Yeah, probably. But given, I think, the prospects that I currently have, I felt okay getting just 1 catcher so far. I think there will be catchers that become available either in minor league free agency or within the international amateur pool to draft. There were not that many catchers that I was that excited about either. I think if I remember correctly, infielders and pitchers I felt were just really important. I want to try to build up my good infield defense within the minors so that they can rise through the ranks and help the major league team once they graduate. Pitchers, you always need pitchers. It's always good to have probably, I think, close to half the draft class being pitchers because they make up half my roster. I'm going to need them throughout the system. And if I remember correctly, when I came in, no, I think this was actually okay. We didn't have that many pitchers that we were short on, but always good to get a lot more new arms in and introduce them to, for now, low rookie ball. And this is 18 picks, 17 picks. So makes up almost the entire low rookie league team. Can see if there's anybody from last year's draft that I both want to keep and think can still benefit being at this lowest level. Otherwise, I will probably be making some cuts and potential promotions, at least to high rookie ball for the previous classes, and making sure that I have room for all of these players to get decent playing time, especially players that were flagged as potentially really, really good. You want to make sure that they can get in and get playing time as soon as possible. So, as I mentioned, Brandon's individual report for the Kansas City Royals had us at a score or a grade of A-. So that's really encouraging. He also put together a full league review of the draft. I'm just going to look at the AL Central because that's the division that we are in. That's the teams that I am competing with. Those are really probably the teams that are most important to keep an eye on, at least for the first couple of seasons while I'm in MLM. 2 teams received grades of at least A. The Detroit Tigers were given an A+. Congrats to the relatively new GM of the Tigers. That is a fantastic draft. He did acquire a lot of draft picks as well. So there is a bit of, oh, hey, you made a lot of picks. So that's encouraging. But definitely had 3 picks in the top 42 that the LLM classified as top 10 talents offensively. So those 3 picks were used to draft those. Did land, quote, elite talents in catcher Lenny Hilltide, third base Chris Sen, and then a high floor bat like Jake Banura. Drafted, not quite sure what that last little bit is. High floor bats like Jake Banura, and then in parentheses, it looks like we have T.2781. So obviously using LLM to do this, you're going to get some weird results sometimes with generation. Maybe that's 1.2781, not T, looking at some of this other stuff. But overall, still highly ranked draft for the Detroit Tigers. Cleveland Guardians actually also came in with a grade of A. Overall, landing the number 1 talent, Dixon Sider, 1.5875. It will be very interesting to see how he develops, because this could be an early indication of if this rating algorithm is reliable, is predictive about future performance. Also, I'm going to keep an eye on 2 solid pitchers in Brandon Lyons and Danny Russell. It looks like the Guardians really rests or is developed based on the pick of Dixon Sider. So congratulations to them. Will the rest of the draft class contribute? That is also one of the questions that is raised by the report. Chicago White Sox were given a B, noted as a steady professional draft with good value from Jim Nooner and Ray Pike, both being good picks, with Pike being flagged as a potential steal in the 12th round. No true top-end players were drafted by the White Sox, but this always gives you an opportunity to potentially develop those players into something more useful. The Minnesota Twins were given a C+. Their draft, headlined by Wilson Diaz, was flagged as a pragmatic draft, but one that lacks significant depth, or high-value picks in the later rounds. Wilson Diaz is flagged as a legitimate top 20 talent from this draft, so that's encouraging to see for the Twins. Always annoying to see as a competitor that, oh, hey, they made a good pick. That happens. Teams are going to make good picks. They should do that. But we'll see how it plays out. They potentially reached on catcher Tyler Dufresne at a 1.1406 in the 3rd round. I mean, 1.14, yeah, that seems a little bit high, but I think if you look at other picks in those rounds, there may be folks who are even lower ranked, but we'll see. Overall, Kansas City Royals were given a C. So compared to our individual grade of an A minus, comparatively, we are giving a C. A class that feels like a collection of safe, low-ceiling players missing a chance to add significant impact talent. That's fair. I definitely wanted to make sure that I had steady players for sure. I don't think I have anybody that is a lights-out amazing player that may or may not develop. I think most of these players have a good chance to develop, but maybe none of them can become world beaters, somebody that you really build your entire team around, and that's okay. Strengths noted in our write-up, center fielder Jay Wright with a grade of 1.2844 was a solid pick in the third round. And Pedro Alvarez, the shortstop picked in the fifth, is, quote, excellent value. So that's encouraging. And the final question, of course, is Steve Proctor at 1.2773 at pick 41 was quoted as a significant reach with higher rated arms available. And that may be true, but I felt comfortable with what I was seeing with Proctor and am encouraged by what I saw from the ratings, from what my scout was saying, and what I had when I plugged stuff into the spreadsheets. This is a really exciting write-up that Brandon put together. I think could be something that we use going forward. So as noted, the Tigers were given an A+ grade. Draft superlatives, they were also given the best haul, which makes sense. That's why they have an A+ grade. Biggest reach, actually not within our division. Trevor Thompson, first baseman for the New York Yankees, that Brandon just took over. So interesting to see how he does, how Brandon feels about him being flagged as the reach. But the Yankees were also rated as the best pitching class. So Brandon really tried to build that up. Maybe that is what they were thinking they lacked the most. There are final draft class power rankings, S through C tiers. Royals do reside squarely within the C tier of work to do, which that's fine. I think this is really early in the development process, both for me as a GM of the Royals and for this ranking system. I think we'll see how this all plans out. There are 8 teams within the C tier. The Royals, the Twins, the Nationals, the Pirates, the Rockies, the Athletics, and the Marlins. I think keep an eye on all of these teams in their draft classes and see how they do. The rate at which these seasons progress, it'll take a little bit of time to see really how these pay out, which is the normal ebb and flow of OOTP simulation league. So wait and see what happens. Overall, I'm thinking I feel more like a B tier draft, solid foundation, than C tier with still some work to do, and that's okay. But I think keep an eye on our picks, keep an eye on Alvarado, and keep an eye on Proctor just to see, is he really maybe a reach? Should I have picked somebody better? We'll see. I think it'll be an opportunity to flag some other players who were picked around him to see how they end up doing. I think if I can get some player IDs flagged and develop some little lists that I can either query the Stats Plus results or just easily export the results or their stats from the game and look at how stuff goes. That could be interesting, but still working on trying to put all that stuff together. Fortunately, Stats Plus has a nice little API setup that it's easy to grab some stuff from there as well if I'm not able to get into the game and do this. But thank you everybody for listening to the first actual episode of the MLM Royals podcast. I'm your host, Local Pobs, GM of the Kansas City Royals. Like, rate, review, subscribe, whatever you want to do for the podcast. This should be on most major podcast platforms now. I am hosting it on Patreon, and distribution at least is going to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Various podcast apps on your phone should then grab one of those at least as a feed. Hopefully I can pull it in. Otherwise, I do have the RSS feed from Patreon I can give you. I think I have added it to a few other podcast platforms too. But if it's not on your platform of choice, please let me know. This is a great first episode, I think. It was fine. A couple of hiccups. Not entirely sure what I was going to talk about beyond the draft classes, but good first picks, good first podcast. Stay tuned to see how the rest of the season goes for the Royals. Heads up, it probably won't go very well, but that's okay. I think the main goal is to not have a team below 50 or 60 wins. Overall, happy with how this went. Stay tuned, everybody. Enjoy your day. Good luck out there. Go Royals. Thank you.